Hey, my name is Braedon Lowy. This is my 1990 Ford Econoline. 2 years later, his name is Gaston. It's pretty modest. I have some shelving. I have a sink here with plumbing underneath. Pantry for food storage, which is a complete mess at the moment. Got a fridge down here. It's powered off in the winter, so it's only dry storage because I don't get quite enough sunlight. More storage down here. Clothes, closet. Part of the reason I live in a van is just for the adventure and the freedom, you know, like during the summer, it's really awesome. I can take off to the woods and just go camping without having to pack anything. It's the freedom and flexibility is so cool. But the other reason is that the housing market here is just, it's not sustainable for someone my age in my income bracket, you know. I'm here trying to study. I can't really work full time in a sustainable way. It's exhausting. So I live in a van so that I have the option to actually pursue my studies without busting ass to try and have a place to live too. I'm not pinching pennies to make rent and buying like the cheapest groceries. Like I can like afford to eat out with friends once in a while. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, it's all storage. I got lots of cupboards. I figured out my kitchen, also a mess. Don't have a lot of time to organize during school. Yeah, I figured out how to build a lot of this kind of as I was going. You can probably look at the cupboards and see which order I built them in. They were the last thing that I did too, just before that shelf, and then that was it. My faucet just broke, the button broke, and I tried to get in there to fix it, and I just broke the whole thing. So that doesn't work right now, but I just got a new one. I just have to put it in. So here on the side, I have my diesel powered heater. It is direct wired into my battery just to power it up, and then it vents out underneath the van. Really warms up the space, super cozy even on the lowest setting, and really efficient to run. I spend maybe about $10 a month on diesel in the winter. The water is all down here, so I have my gray water tank just hooked up underneath the sink here, and then this is my fresh water here that runs right up into this rechargeable faucet. And then I have a jerry can under there just for the diesel heater as well, so don't have to fill it a bunch. It's a 4-liter tank. Looking at pre-built vans was like, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars to pay for someone else's labor and materials, and that's just not money that I had disposable at the time. The other reason that I built my own van is because I'm a control freak. I didn't want to live with someone else's build when I knew kind of exactly what I wanted, what I needed space for, and what kind of lifestyle I wanted to live in the van. Building the van with no experience was honestly one of the best experiences of my life. I was living in a house in Vancouver with a few friends. We all rented out the main floor, and I built the whole van in the backyard of that place. I've never built anything in my life other than Lego, really. Like I'm an English major here. Like I'm not a very handy guy, at least I wasn't at the time. So it was all just learning as I went. If I did it again now, knowing what I've learned, I could probably save myself like $2,000 in lumber and other materials, but it was worth the learning experience. The van was $4,500 after tax from a dealership, and then the rest of the conversion brought the total to about $13,000. Which it has paid for itself now in what I've saved in rent. So I have 300 watts of solar panels up top, and they run down to my battery. It's just right underneath here. I keep the shoes, and then I have it wired into a 1,000 watt inverter that's just mounted on the wall, hidden away from everything, and that runs a power bar up on the shelf there and my fridge. I thought about getting a direct current fridge, but the alternate current stuff honestly is pretty efficient now, so I got that little guy, and it takes maybe about 5 to 10% of my battery depending on how hot the van is, but on the hotter days I'm usually getting enough sunshine to justify it. So yeah, and that all the solar gear is from Renogy, kind of the industry standard for a lot of van builds. Same with the Max Air Deluxe up there. You've probably seen 100 of those. Yeah, and then underneath the bed here, built this big drawer for storage. Oh, I just pulled it out a little too far, but that's okay. And this is all clothes right now. I stole the idea from another build. He had a drawer like this and he kept like skis in there. So I built a really long one so I have that versatility, but it is entirely just my closet at the moment. Living in the van for the last 2 years has been, it's got high highs and low lows. Like I wish I could sit here and tell you that like I love it, I wouldn't change it for the world, but it's like it sucks sometimes, you know? And I wake up at like 5 in the morning in the middle of winter and I have a paper due that night and I'm freezing cold and wet because it's humid in here. I'm like, why am I doing this? But then, you know, in the summer when I can take my whole house down to visit my family and stop in at my aunt's place along the way and just like camp wherever I want and take my time and just enjoy life, like that's great. If I were to give advice to somebody thinking of doing van life, I mean, the first thing I would say is, yeah, try it. It's awesome. You'll learn a lot and it'll be a great experience for you. So if you're thinking about it, stop thinking about it. The other thing is, there's a lot of little things that you won't consider until you're well into it. When your van gets humid, like you need dehumidifiers, right? Like there's lots of little things that come up and problems that you have to solve. And it's a whole new set of problems than when you live in a place, like a conventional housing system. So you need to be resourceful and have those solutions and, you know, have some things at hand too. Like make sure any fluid that your van needs, you have in it. I learned that the hard way too. I've leaked everything out of here at some point. Oil, coolant. I put a new transmission in this year. What I've learned about myself living in a van is kind of, you know, I have the problem solving skills to do this kind of thing and the awareness to do it well, I think. So I have also direct wired our 4 RV lights on 2 on each side, and honestly one of them lights up the space completely when it's dark. Other than that, I have these little string lights here that they actually just broke. I need to replace them. Oh, they slightly turned on. And then sometimes, honestly, even a candle lights up a small space like this. I can light one up and read with it. So I do that in the winter sometimes too, but folds out to almost the size of a double bed. And then these are just 2 separate memory foam pads. I think they're 4 inches and they're honestly really comfortable. I thought that was gonna be something to get used to, but I've never had a problem sleeping on these. Glued Velcro on the bottom to mount it to the bed frame here. And then they've never come off the bed frame since because there's never a reason to, but built it on slats to get a little bit of airflow underneath, which is really nice actually. At night in the winter, the heater vents right underneath the bed and then all the hot air kind of builds there and comes up over time. So run it for a little while before bed and usually it stays warm for a while. So, which wasn't intentional, but great that it worked out that way. Van life is for way too many people to give a straight answer to that. You know, there's a lot of reasons to do it. For me, part of it is like an economic philosophy thing. I just hate capitalism. I hate giving my paychecks to landlords. I was really interested in owning my home in, you know, the roundabout sort of way that it took. So like that's a big thing for me, is like the independence from capitalism and the hierarchy that we have. But some people don't care about that at all. So for some people, it's just, you know, if you want to be adventurous, if you just want to like be nomadic, there's a lot of different reasons to do it. I think, yeah, one of the largest for me is definitely just economic philosophy though. To start living in a van, first you have to acquire a van. Which can be the hardest part. You know, I was watching listings every day. I would check in the morning, and the van that I ended up with was listed like an hour before I contacted the dealership, and there was already people interested. Unless you're buying a pre-built van, you do need to do a lot of planning and research to figure out what's going to work for you in terms of materials and how you want to approach a build. Like, I did a lot of research, and it paid off. You know, I think I picked like the best insulation. I have a really good solar setup. Like there's a lot of stuff in here that works for someone who didn't know what they were doing. But then there are a handful of things that don't work too. So yeah, I have 2 door panels over there that were both painted by my lovely friends Liz painted the ocean themed one, and Athena did the mountainscape. And then I have this huge ceiling panel that was done by my friend Sam, kind of inspired by a lot of things that I like. This is Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. And then this is all a bunch of video game references down here. And then I have one more on the side door there that is painted by my friend Sage. The two windows in the back of the van, they don't actually open. So they would have been just a source of light and therefore heat. So I decided to cover over them. They're fully insulated with wool and built over so I can have shelving here. So I have room to put my bed up here. They're kind of just mostly non-functional. These ones do open, so they're great for airflow. I left this one available. I constantly feel limited by the lack of space in my van. That is one of the hardest things. In some ways, it's a blessing in disguise, because it's like I have to get outside to exercise. You know, I can't like do a workout at home, which is good because it gets me out of the house. It gets me out in nature, in the sun. I go for runs by the sea every once in a while. So in some ways, like, it's like annoying, but it all is also like I'm grateful for that annoyance. But other times, absolutely, I'm limited by space. I can't do anything in here but sit. I can't even stand up. And one thing that I think I never really considered is like, I think I'm a pretty neat person, and it is so easy for a space like this to get cluttered. I leave one shirt out and it is so easy to notice. When you're designing a van, an important thing to remember is that you probably don't need as much stuff as you think. And you know, that goes for like luxuries, as well as essentials. Like I had a cupboard down here that I used to keep a camping toilet in, and then it was for emergencies because, like, frankly, you don't want to poop in a van, this size anyways. But I found that, you know, I'm always somewhere where I'm able to use a real facility. So that's the kind of thing that, like, I eventually got rid of it because I was like, I don't use this, it just takes up space. So up front here, the weird thing about these vans is there's like no space up front for like anything. Like, this is literally the only thing that's built into the van. So what I did was I found one of these things and I built this center console here for storage. It's mostly for seasonal stuff, you know. I'll keep sleeping bags and beach towels in there, and then a jug of oil here and there. And then I use behind the seats for storage a lot, for, you know, just pieces of my paddle board here. Yeah, and I just mounted this thing onto here so I have cup holders and places for my sunglasses and all that, because really weird for a van that's built for like a family to like travel long road trips with. There's nowhere to put anything. So yeah, I built all that in. Being a student and living in the van is, in some ways, it makes being a student harder, and it makes living in a van easier. So what I mean by that is, like, being on campus, I have a lot of things at my disposal that I need. You know, there's buildings that I am able to exist in without spending money until like 11 o'clock at night. There's a gym and a shower that I have cheap access to. Like, there's just so much around that makes my life easier to have that unrestricted access. But it also makes some things difficult. You know, being a student, like, I don't have really a private space to work. Like, I have a very modest desk set up in here, but it's like not really something I can get comfortable at. I'm always kind of working against the environment in here, where, you know, I'm trying to cool it off or heat it up. Like, it's rarely comfortable. It's difficult to exist in any kind of like structure when you're living in an alternative dwelling like this, because there are rules against it. Like, there's a bylaw that says I'm not allowed to use my vehicle as a dwelling place, is the exact wording, on university property. But you are allowed to park overnight. So I did do that a long time. For a year, I would just sleep on campus, and then finally security saw me pull in one night and they were like, hey, you're not allowed to use your vehicle as a dwelling place. And he was super friendly about it. I have no beef with security on campus here. I'm sure you've interviewed some van dwellers who, like, are really interesting characters. I say that with so much love, but there's also a lot of us doing it who are like, you would never know, right? You would never even guess. Up here is easily where it's the coldest or the hottest at any given time of year, so this big divide helps a lot with that. It's also insulated in between. It's a 2-inch thick barrier. So honestly makes a huge difference. You know, if I'm sitting in the back with the heat on in the winter, then if I tear this curtain open and climb up here, like, it's freezing. So yeah, it makes a big difference that way. And then just privacy too. You know, I didn't want to have like a big curtain here and that sort of thing. I thought that this would be better. I have one bucket that usually hangs up there and collects most of the ambient moisture in the room, and then just a couple strategic placements of one here where my battery and my shoes are, because I don't want that to be a humid space, and then one where my clothes are, and one in a cupboard up there where all my books are. Living in an actual house opens up the way for me to have a lot more routine and structure in my life that I am missing in the van. You know, and when I'm parking somewhere different every night, my commute is a different length in the morning all the time. And it's just kind of impossible to plan ahead and to have structure and routine the way that I like to. My personal philosophy on life is to, like, you know that Shia LaBeouf video that's big a little while ago? He's like, just do it. It's like, it's a lot of that. I think that, you know, if you're hesitant about something, like, it's better to do it than to not. And I've always regretted not doing something more than I've regretted doing it. Throw yourself into something and come out on the other end with a learning experience. I think it's worth it every time. My personal Instagram, where I post some things about van life, is Carly Bray Jepson, like the musician, but stick a little B in there because it's like my name. You can get it. If you want to follow, I do poetry and photography as well, and just like a lot of general artistic things. If you want to follow that public-facing account, it's my middle name, George _Lowey, Lowey. That's on Instagram and Twitter.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please share it with a friend. Also, if you want to watch more alternative dwellings, we got a playlist popping up right here, and we release new episodes every single Sunday, so consider subscribing.